My dictionary tells me that a backlog is an accumulation of uncompleted work or matters that need to be dealt with. But in this video, I want to answer the questions: what is a product backlog and what is a sprint backlog? A backlog is a list of requirements, usually arranged in priority order and usually expressed in terms of stories. For more on that, see our video What are Epics, User Stories and Story Points. The project team will maintain a product backlog of user requirements for the product under development, and as new requirements emerge, the team will add these to the backlog. Sometimes the product owner will arrange these user stories within the backlog into a logical sequence to form a product roadmap that sets out how the different stories will be delivered by the team. However, the backlog does not belong exclusively to the product owner. It needs to be fully accessible to the whole project team because it is a single source of truth on what the user requirements are that the team will need to develop. Typical backlogs consist of features that the team needs to create. However, they can also include other things, such as bugs to fix, changes to make, research to carry out, or infrastructure or assets to build. We're going to look at how backlogs work in 3 of the common Agile methodologies: Scrum, Kanban, and Scaled Agile Framework. Let's start with Scrum. At the start of each sprint, the Scrum team will draw down a number of features or stories from the product backlog to work on during the coming sprint. This then is known as the Sprint Backlog, and it is a subset of the entire product backlog. Usually, the Sprint Backlog will also contain a statement of the sprint goal, which the sprint team develop and articulate during the sprint planning stage. So, the Sprint Backlog articulates the work that the development team need to carry out during the sprint to achieve the sprint goal. However, the Sprint Backlog does need to remain under constant review during the sprint, and it is updated as needed, typically at the daily Scrum meeting. It's important to note that not all of the feature requests or user stories in the product backlog will get developed. Over the course of time, the team may learn that some of those requirements are of marginal value. And as they move from sprint to sprint, there may come a time where the remaining feature requests and user stories do not have enough value to justify the cost and the effort of additional sprints. Kanban is more usually used for continuous delivery rather than development. As a result, the team draws down items from the product backlog continuously. And they do so in such a way that the work under review and being undertaken at the time never exceed the work in progress limits set for the team. And those work in progress limits are dictated by the team's capacity to get work done. Scaled Agile Framework has a series of different backlogs at different sizes, rather than a single product backlog. Each of these backlogs contains different amounts of detail. The Portfolio Backlog contains information about the different initiatives that the organisation is working on, and they are sometimes referred to as epics. The Solution Backlog contains high-level backlog items that will form different aspects of the solution, and they're often known as either capabilities or enablers. The Program Backlog contains lower-level backlog items that also form different aspects of the solution. They are often known as features. Finally, the Team Backlog contains the items, the user stories, that the team is working on, and is therefore equivalent to the Sprint Backlog. So how is a product backlog maintained? The product backlog and the roadmap that emerges from it are maintained under constant review throughout the program. As new feature requirements emerge or users identify new ideas, the backlog grows and the roadmap evolves. It's the responsibility of product owners to review the backlog constantly, taking into account those new ideas from the users, but also feedback from the development team. This regular review of the backlog is sometimes known as backlog refinement or backlog grooming. As the backlog grows larger, it becomes increasingly important that product owners impose some order on it, perhaps labeling some items as near-term, medium-term, and long-term features. Near-term items on the backlog will have a lot more detail attached to them, including a full user story and possibly some substantial estimates of how much time it will take to develop the feature. The team may also develop a definition of ready, which sets out the conditions under which the team will consider a backlog item ready to move to development and therefore to the Sprint Backlog or the Team Backlog in Scaled Agile framework. Long-term items on the backlog, however, need only have the briefest and roughest of information. So, a backlog is an accumulation of work that an Agile team needs to carry out. The concept is very useful in all forms of project management because, of course, all forms of project management are really some form of hybrid project management. So, whatever kind of project you're doing, think about how you can use the concept of a backlog to bring order to the chaos of requirements from your different stakeholders. Please do give a thumbs up if you like this video. I'll be making loads more great project management videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of them. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.